Now, Elijah challenged Ahab to gather the prophets of Baal and Asherah. Elijah wanted to make it clear that rain came from Yahweh, not Baal. And in verse 21, he says, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." So if Baal is the supposed god of thunder, then let this God answer by thunder or send fire from heaven, is what he's saying. Verse 24, how about you guys call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by thunder, by fire, he is God. Then Elijah says, you guys go first. There's 450 Baal prophets compared to just me. Well, why don't you guys go first? So he's pretty bold here. I'm going to read chapter 18, verse 26. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called out on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us," they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered, and they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he is God. Perhaps he's in deep thought. Or maybe your God's busy or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and you guys need to wake him up." Elijah waited patiently, and after so many hours, he's starting to mock them like, "Where's your God? He clearly isn't answering you." Canaanite worship included ritual dancing and self-mutilation. That's why you read in verse 28 that they slashed themselves. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. But there was no response from their God. So finally Elijah says, "Let me show you. Gather around, kids." Elijah picks up 12 stones, and it's one stone for each tribe. Now Ahab is the king of the northern territory, the territory that Elijah is appealing to. Now that territory only has 10 tribes, but Elijah is making a point. This isn't about the 10 tribes. This is about the covenant relationship that concerns all 12, including the 2 in the southern territory. So even though there's this political division between the 10 tribes of the north and the 2 in the south, the covenant belongs to all 12 tribes, not just 10. So I'm going to read verse 32. "With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold the 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, 'Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood.'" Where he's at is actually by the Mediterranean Sea. So I'm guessing that's where he got 4 jars of water in this drought. Now he drenches the wood on the animal sacrifice. He drenches it 3 times, so much that water filled the trench that he dug. Now he's doing this to show that he has no tricks up his sleeve. You guys see that the animal sacrifice is wet, that the wood is drenched, that the stones are wet. And then he prays, "Let it be known today that you, Lord, are God." I'm going to read verse 38. "Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood and the stones and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When the people saw this, they fell and cried, 'The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God.'" Notice how the prophets of Baal were dancing, shouting, self-mutilating. Elijah had no theatrics, just a simple prayer. That goes to show the power of prayer. It doesn't have to be this big show. This is one of the great prayers in Scripture, and it was brief but effective.